people who aren't in comedy always come up to us and say, "Oh my gosh, you live this gorgeous, wonderful life. You get to travel all the time." Why don't you tell us about your last trip, Flip? How glamorous and fun was that?
So I got contacted by a club in Phoenix called Stand Up Live. So, so it was Memorial Day weekend. Couldn't get a flight. Also couldn't get my dog boarded. So I got a rent a car and I threw my 87-pound German Shepherd into a car and drove 1,400 miles, leaving Wednesday afternoon. And then ran into a hailstorm outside of San Antonio. Was routed 100 extra miles out of my way. Closed my eyes for a couple hours at a truck stop. Got to Phoenix at like 3 in the afternoon on Friday and had a show Friday night at 7. So that was some pretty glamorous comic stuff going on there.
And tell us about all the touristy things you got to see along the highway, because apparently we do a lot of sightseeing on the road.
Let's see. I saw a lot of law enforcement along the way because it was Memorial Day weekend. I saw a lot of truck stops. Ooh. When I was in Phoenix, I was fortunate enough to see a crackhead in the middle of a sidewalk pleasuring himself. So I mean, when it comes to sightseeing, you're not going to get better than that. That was amazing. You know, it's funny because I was telling you, I talk to everyone, right? I stop people on the street. I talk to them. I love talking to people. And I'm looking at this guy, and he seemed really determined, and he seemed like he was really close to being where he wanted to be. So I didn't want to.
Do you notice I'm not saying anything?
Nothing.
Because if you think I'm going to walk through this cow pasture with you, you are crazy.
So I'm walking, and he had that look like any minute now, and I didn't want to be in the splash zone because again, like you don't know if there's a regular deal, right? Where he's not exactly backed up, so it's just going to be like a dribbler, or you don't know if this was like a once in a blue moon kind of a deal, in which case he'd be shooting for the fences, and I didn't want to be anywhere in the end. So I didn't want my dog to suddenly have moose in her hair.
Now, I know you're going to find this odd, but when I said about sightseeing, I was talking about like maybe the mountains or stopping to see something along the road. But you don't ever have any kind of sightseeing like that. You're one of those comics that seems to attract the, shall we say, strange and unusual. Because I do have 30 years on the road, so I have some experience.
Right.
And I've never experienced anybody doing what your little friend was doing.
I mean, I've seen people like pee, but they're normally like in or near a bush or in like a corner of a building, or I mean, they're trying to be as much as you can be on the mean streets. They're trying to be a little discreet. This is a guy who is like, you know what? Don't look out of there. I got a plan. And I'm like, well, good for you. Everyone needs a plan. So, that was my sightseeing.
When I said sightseeing, I was thinking differently. But you're talking to the same woman that the first time, I remember the first time that I was making that long trip down to I-10, which has got to be the longest road in the world. You're leaving Tallahassee and all of a sudden you're not seeing anything.